Why don't you go ahead and take this time collar off and start treating me like somebody who outranks you?
12 seconds later.
I'm not a hunter. None of this is real.
The problem with you is, you're completely delusional.
Loki Season 2, Episode 2. Since last time, the TVA has lost contact with X5 and the General. Mobius and Loki track X5 to the sacred timeline, where he's living as a movie star. Later, we'll find out the General plans to prune all the branches, which is why X5 has chosen to hide out on the sacred timeline, as opposed to any of the others. Except, by starting a life on the sacred timeline, he invariably creates a new branch, which means he gets killed when the pruning begins. I don't think the writers thought this one through. When they confront him, X5 makes a break for it, and Loki chases him down. He's made to appear intimidating and dangerous. He's cast in shadow, and the music contributes to an ominous atmosphere. He runs after a frightened X5. He uses illusions to corner him, and pins him against a wall with demonic shadow copies of himself. Not a single joke is made at Loki's expense, not in this scene, nor in the episode as a whole. For the first time, Loki is allowed to be threatening, and he's allowed to be more competent, using his powers in an effective way, and succeeding in his goal. This is totally new for the show, yet is more in line with where his character should be. While I applaud the return of Loki's villainous edge, there are still issues with this scene. The TVA has captured countless variants, yet Loki's forced to chase him on foot? This hyper-advanced organization doesn't have any tech to make this easier? Not even something as simple as a gun? Are you telling me Earth Police are more equipped to capture variants than the TVA? They literally have a drawer full of Infinity Stones. Why does no one think to use them? At every turn, the TVA actively makes things harder for itself. The episode goes out of its way to show off Loki's telekinesis. It's a power he didn't have before the show, and which would have been very useful, especially since it's strong enough to lift a building. Why can't Loki just almighty pull X5? Also, since when can he conjure shadow people? The show has a bad habit of randomly giving Loki new powers that he doesn't take advantage of. If he can easily capture one of the TVA's best hunters, why didn't he use these powers to escape in Season 1? They take X5 back to the TVA as a prisoner. Unable to rely on OB, Loki and Mobius struggle to get inside X5's modded tempad. Where is the TVA's tech department? Is it literally just OB? For an organization that's so reliant on tech, you'd think they'd have a big IT department.
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Meanwhile, Casey searches for Renslayer. He discovers she's working with Miss Minutes. When Loki and Mobius are told, Loki tells them about the recording he heard.
When were you gonna tell us about
What is that?
Yeah, good question. You'd think Loki would spill the beans on everything he learned from the past and future. Why keep it a secret? Casey asks about the tempad they're messing with.
X5 says it somehow blocks TVA tracking.
That's not what it does.
Apparently Casey is enough of an expert to figure out the tempad's true purpose for them. That's weird. As far as we know, Casey's job has nothing to do with technical expertise. Also, nothing comes from this plot point. The purpose of the tempad is revealed to them by a completely different source later. Loki, Mobius, and B-15 go to interrogate X5.
Where's Docs? Where's Sylvie? And what did he do to that tempad? That's all we need to find out.
Mobius warns Loki not to let X5 get under his skin. He seems to think Loki will be the easiest one to rile up. Based on Season 1, that would be correct.
Conceal, don't feel.
But something's different about Loki in this episode.
Hey, what were you doing down there on the sacred timeline?
Making movies.
Don't waste our time, X5.
It's Brad.
Brad, let's cut to the chase, shall we? What did you do to this tempad?
That wasn't one of your 3 questions, and he very obviously avoided answering. Now you're just gonna move on to something else and let him get away with that dodge? This interrogation isn't starting off great.
What did you do to this tempad?
It blocks your trackers.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, no shit.
And then X5 just admits to his lie with zero pressure, so I guess he isn't too good at this either. After X5 waffles for a bit, Loki tries to stress the urgency of the situation.
There are lives at stake.
Oh, you've got some nerve. Everyone here knows what you're doing, you know. You're just trying to make up for all the terrible, awful shit you've done in your life, you pathetic little man.
Loki's crimes are nothing compared to the atrocities of the TVA. Atrocities that X5 doesn't seem to have any remorse over. He can't take the moral high ground. Seriously, imagine if Hitler berated you for shoplifting.
The caucasity of this bitch.
Surprisingly, Loki doesn't blow up on him. He simply takes a breath and tells him to continue. He's actually able to control his emotions again.
See, everything you and Sylvie have ever done to try to help has only ever made it worse. You're the problem. At the end of the day, you just make everything worse.
I'm not sure what he's referring to. Until recently, Loki hasn't been trying to help people. His primary concerns have been either self-interest or basic survival. I guess he helped Sylvie with her quest for revenge, but that was actually successful. Maybe he's referring to the threat of the multiversal war, but Sylvie was the one that killed Kang. He tried to stop her, so that can't be it.
You lose. You're a loser. Stop trying to be a hero, man. You're a villain. You're good at it.
Did he really just say that? Did he just say Loki's a loser, followed immediately by how he's good at being a villain? Dude wins top spot at contradiction speedrunning. And I don't think it's a good idea to tell your interrogator that you should act like a villain.
Not a great plan.
He's basically asking to be tortured. The stream of insults X5 throws at Loki is used to paint him in a despicable light. We're meant to hate him for saying such nasty things about our main character. But in reality, this isn't much worse than what Mobius said to him in the pilot.
I don't believe you.
Do you enjoy killing?
I'll kill you.
What, like you did your mother?
At the end of the day, you just make everything worse. For Mobius, for B-15, for your mother.
Wait a minute. Don't bring anyone mother into this.
Yet Mobius was meant to come off as likable and quirky. It feels disingenuous when two characters say basically the same thing, yet one is villainized and the other isn't.
You know, you're right. I have done some terrible, awful things. And maybe that is who I am. Perhaps I've just been waiting for a moment like this so I can do terrible, awful things to you. So let's try this one more time. Where is Sylvie?
You're way too obsessed with her. He needs therapy.
This feels off. The episode wants X5 to come off as a
Tough nut to crack.
but this doesn't add up. He knows that Loki is willing to do terrible things to get what he wants, so why doesn't he take this threat seriously? It's implied he thinks Mobius won't let Loki resort to torture, but this is a wrong assumption on multiple levels. First off, Mobius totally does let Loki resort to torture. Happily too. Second off, in season 1, Mobius was totally cool with torture. Third off, the TVA genocided entire universes and executed countless innocent people. But torture is where they draw the line?
Even though they are rapists and fucking Nazis, they are more redeemable than you because at least they're doing something they fucking believe in.
Mobius promises to put X5 back onto the sacred timeline if it gives them the info they want. In response, he says,
You're not an analyst. I'm not a hunter. None of this is real.
What the hell are you talking about? The TVA is indeed real. He's acting like it's some illusion. It literally contains a machine that makes reality. And of course Mobius is an analyst. He trained to be one and carried out the job for centuries. Just because he was lied to about where he came from doesn't mean all that goes away. X5 has consistently said nonsense statement after nonsense statement. And this dude is supposed to be intimidating?
Do you have any idea what kind of life you might have left behind? Who might be waiting for you back there?
There's no one waiting for him. Mobius is a variant, so his timeline was a branch that was destroyed long ago.
You know they took our lives and you're still here. I mean, it's kind of weird, man. I mean, you need to wake up.
I'm awake.
Till you do, you're nothing.
This prodding causes Mobius to lose it and bitch slap him. They leave. The interrogation a failure. This is meant to show us how difficult it is to get info out of X5, but it only highlights the TVA's incompetence. They have an unlimited amount of tools at their disposal, yet they just stand around asking questions, hoping he'll eventually cooperate. Remember, truth serum exists in the MCU.
I'm gonna introduce you to my good friend Uzman. Uzman is a master at extracting information from the unwilling through psychoactive means.
Oh, is that truth serum?
Along with technology that can allow you to access memories.
Memory Lane. Replay your significant memories now at a discounted price.
They could also take him outside the TVA and use a soul stone on him. They sit down for some pie so Mobius can cool off.
You know, sometimes the rage builds up and you just gotta let it out. You remember that time I was so angry with my father and my brother, I went down to Earth,
and I held the whole of New York City hostage with an alien army. Tried to use the Mind Stone on Tony Stark. It didn't work, so I threw him off the building. Wasn't tactical.
Loki is trying to give an example of a time he also lost his cool to make Mobius feel less bad about his outburst. But Loki's actions during the Avengers definitely doesn't count. There, he enacted a carefully calculated plan to destroy the Avengers and seize control of Earth. It was extremely tactical, and he was close to succeeding. And I'm not sure how Mobius would feel having his actions compared to an attempt to start a war and enslave a planet. That would probably make him feel worse, if anything. Loki asks why Mobius doesn't want to know about his life on the timeline. He insists that he's satisfied and happy at the TVA.
I'd like to thank the guy who kidnapped me and brought me here. The TVA is the only life I've ever known. I like it.
Last season, when he learned he was a variant, he immediately wanted to blow the place sky high.
Better figure it out quick, because the Nexus event the two of you caused, I think whatever that connection is, can bring this whole place down.
Now he likes it? What about genociding timelines? Was that a good time? Mobius admits he's afraid of learning he's happy on the timeline, and that he won't be able to move on with his current life without constantly thinking about that. He'd rather be content where he is, than be haunted by what could have been. Honestly, this feels like a retcon from last season. His reaction to learning he's a variant has become totally different and contradictory. The convo turns back to X5. Mobius concludes he must have found Sylvie, given how good a hunter he is. But he didn't turn her in, and instead ran off to the sacred timeline to live his best life.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Don't know about that.
X5 was a good hunter under the context of a single main timeline where any branches are immediately snipped. Not sure if that translates to a main timeline with a nigh infinite amount of branching timelines, with timelines branching off of those, etc, etc. Seems like a steep difficulty curve. And why assume he even bothered to find her? He could have just ran off to the sacred timeline without even trying to look. These are baseless assumptions that happen to be right for plot convenience. Loki and Mobius go to interrogate X5 once more. They wheel in a special machine. They've become desperate.
Because you're a tough nut to crack.
You talked to him once, and you didn't even ask all the questions you wanted to. And X5 was rambling like a bona fide poo brain. Loki locks out Mobius, who panics and starts banging on the door.
I'm a villain. Remember?
The allegedly intelligent X5 doesn't realize this is a performance, even though Loki locked the door from the inside. That is obviously impossible and should have tipped him off right away. Loki turns on the machine, causing X5 to start freaking out. Loki relishes his fear. This is absolutely the most in-character Loki has been in the entire show. Remember, it hasn't been long since...
He killed 80 people in 2 days.
I won't touch Barton, not until I make him kill you. In every way he knows you fear. And then he'll wake just long enough to see his good work. And when he screams, I'll split his skull.
It's too late to stop it.
No. We can. Together.
Sentiment.
Loki's the kind of character who's willing to lie, kill, and torture to take what he wants, all while taking pleasure in the power he holds over others. These core traits have been missing until now. Loki creates a funky sci-fi cube around X5, and continuously shrinks it until he starts telling the truth.
I lied, okay, I did. I was supposed to go look for Sylvie, but then I bailed, okay, I bailed.
Loki reckons X5 found Sylvie because he wouldn't abandon his mission. But we know this isn't true. X5 did, in fact, abandon his mission, as established by the start of the episode. When X5 admits he knows where Sylvie is, Loki lets him out of the box, and Mobius enters to reveal it was all performance. A pointlessly convoluted one. The only reason to put on this ruse is to convince X5 that Loki will seriously hurt him, even though Mobius normally wouldn't allow it. Assuming this is true, it makes no sense to reveal the trick before getting any useful info out of him. He'd now assume he's totally safe and not give up anything, but that doesn't happen. He quickly reveals Sylvie's location, as if Mobius would let Loki hurt him for real, and the episode hints that this is a valid fear.
Brad, I'm telling you right now, if you're wasting our time, you're going right back in the gizmo.
Whoa, hey, okay.
I mean, 10 minutes ago, you were screaming at me, you're nothing. And then I kind of freaked out and basically tortured you.
But this makes the performance pointless. It was an attempt to make Loki seem clever, but was actually just a waste of time. Honestly, he should have just started hacking off fingers until X5 talked. Simpler, more effective, and definitely in character for Loki. Also, why do they only ask one of their 3 questions?
Where's Docs? Where's Sylvie? And what did he do to that temp pad? That's all we need to find out.
This is incredibly important. Because they don't ask about the general or the temp pad, she has time to prune a bunch of timelines. This leads to the loss of trillions of lives, and convinces Sylvie that the TVA is a lost cause, leading her to refuse to cooperate with Loki. There's no reason for them not to ask, they just don't, because the episode is forcing the outcomes it wants, despite all logic. Casey and B-15 go to the loom to talk to OB.
The containment doors are locked, and only the person who designed it can open it with a live scan of his temporal aura.
He who remains.
Without Kang, they need Miss Minutes to override the lock. But why is it locked in the first place? OB had no issues closing the blast doors, so why isn't he allowed to open them again? Especially when he's the only TVA agent responsible for the loom. Seems like some convenient bullshit concocted to push future plot points. They head to McDonald's, where Sylvie now works. She agrees to talk.
It's a short break, so talk fast.
Why is this becoming a habit? Sylvie's pissed at him. She likely still believes he was manipulating her to try and take over the TVA. But the fact that he clearly hasn't taken over the TVA should prove that she was wrong though. She conveniently ignores this fact so she can stay mad at him. Loki says he saw her in the future TVA.
The TVA is in danger, and you were there. I need to know why.
Look, as much as I'd love to see the TVA burnt to the ground, I have no intention of going back there.
For some reason, Loki doesn't tell her why the TVA being in danger is such a bad thing. If he only explained that the universe's existence is reliant on their temporal loom, I'm sure she'd be more inclined to listen. Sylvie is incredibly nonchalant to learn the TVA is still around. Shouldn't she be worried they're still pruning timelines? Potentially the one she's living on? It's as if she knows they've changed their mission statement, even though she doesn't.
He shows up again. His variants, what are you gonna do?
Kill him.
Kang wiped out an infinite amount of timelines and created the TVA, which held supreme dominion over the multiverse for who knows how long. Yet she thinks she could easily kill any Kangs that come after her. No problem. That's incredibly naive and stupid.
It's the future, it's going to happen.
Is it? Really? Because that sounds a lot like the future's already been written, and we both know that it hasn't, not anymore. I made sure of that.
We have yet another fundamental misunderstanding about how the time travel works. With the death of Kang, new branching timelines have been allowed to form from the sacred timeline. In this sense, new futures are born. However, the future Loki saw will always be the future for that particular timeline. Because, say it with me,
changing the past doesn't change the future.
Sylvie doesn't buy anything he's saying, and even refuses to view his memories to confirm. Again, that's mightily convenient to keep these characters at odds.
You're just gonna give everyone free will and walk away?
That's the way it works. You're welcome.
Sylvie took it upon herself to make a cosmically impactful decision, something that affects trillions upon trillions of lives, but refuses to take responsibility for it. So not only is she naive and stupid, she's also reckless and selfish. I suppose this is in character for what we saw in Season 1, although not in line with what the show told us about her in Season 1.
You were just a child when the TVA took you, but you nearly took down the organization that claims to govern the order of time. You ran rings around them. You're amazing.
She planned her attack on the TVA for years. It couldn't do something as simple as charge her tempad. And her plan to kill the timekeepers wasn't any more complicated than just run in and hope she can take them. And then she impulsively killed Kang, not considering for a moment the consequences. X5 reveals the General's plan to prune all the branches. Coincidentally, she starts that plan at exactly the same time. Wait a fucking fuck. Many of these branches have already redlined. Season 1 established that once a branch redlines, it can't be pruned, but suddenly that doesn't matter anymore.
Docs wasn't looking for Sylvie. She's gonna prune all the new branches.
Then why did she send X5 to find her? It only serves to give Loki a means of tracking her down, otherwise he wouldn't have a clue where to look. Loki, Mobius, and Sylvie head to the General's base of operations. Why just them? This is dire. The TVA should send an army of Minutemen to fucking swarm the place.
What are they doing with all the time doors?
Looks like they're connected to the templates.
Maybe that's why Bratz was modified.
Tempads have always opened time doors. Why would X5's tempad need to be modded for that?
Minutemen are all carrying reset charges.
That's how they're bombing all the timelines at once. They're all connected to that central control panel.
Reset charges have never needed some centralized control to detonate. They do now to make it easier for the General to be stopped. Lazy fucking writing. Loki and Sylvie fight them off and destroy the central control. The general and her followers are arrested. They return to the TVA to find that most branches were pruned, meaning the deaths of trillions. Sylvie is pissed at Loki. This has convinced her that the TVA is the problem, so she fucks off back to McDonald's. She's conveniently ignored that the TVA tried to stop the general, and that they were mourning the loss of these branches.
Those are people. Those are lives.
I guess it's easy to miss those things with your head all the way up your ass. And that's the end. Loki is the highlight of the episode. He's closer to being in character than he's ever been, getting some of his bite back and actually being taken seriously for once. But he's not quite back to being Loki again, and I doubt he'll ever be. The writers don't want that Loki back. I don't have much else positive to say about this episode. The pacing is particularly bad compared to last week. There are long, drawn-out scenes of characters talking, without any substance or meaning being conveyed. And what is communicated is incoherent and contradictory. Last time, characters possessed knowledge they shouldn't to progress the plot. In this episode, characters refuse to share knowledge they do have, or conveniently forget knowledge they possess to progress the plot. Thanks for watching, leave a like if you like. Until next time.